More than 2 million Filipinos around the world erupted with excitement the moment it happened. Not because a title had been won, not because a Grand Slam trophy had been lifted, but because two young players stepped onto the clay courts of Roland Garros and forced the tennis world to completely rethink everything it believed about them. For months, the rise of Alexandra Eala had been treated like an interesting story. Promising, exciting, marketable, but temporary. The same thing was happening to Victoria Mboko, the explosive Canadian teenager climbing the rankings so quickly that analysts struggled to explain how it was happening. Both players had believers. Both had loyal fan bases. But when the Roland Garros doubles draw was released and their names appeared together for the very first time, the reaction from much of the tennis establishment was not excitement. It was sympathy. Because waiting across the net stood a team loaded with experience, chemistry, and pedigree. Leylah Fernandez, former U.S. Open finalist, and Diana Schneider, Olympic silver medalist in women's doubles at the 2024 Paris Games. On paper, it looked brutal. A first-time partnership facing an established duo on the biggest clay stage in the world. Most commentators treated the outcome like a formality before the first serve had even been struck. The bookmakers dismissed them. The analysts overlooked them. And some experts spoke about the match as if the result had already been decided. But by the end of the night, the names echoing through Manila, Toronto, Dubai, Los Angeles, and Filipino homes across the world were not Fernandez and Schneider. They were Eala and Mboko. And suddenly, the entire tennis narrative had changed. Before Paris, there were doubts. What made the moment even more powerful was the timing. Less than 2 weeks earlier, both players had suffered losses that could have shaken the confidence of almost anyone. Eala's singles run at Roland Garros had ended earlier than she wanted after a difficult defeat that left many wondering whether her breakthrough performances earlier in the season had arrived too soon. Mboko, meanwhile, was carrying the frustration of a painful Strasbourg final loss against Emma Navarro, a match that felt painfully close before slipping away. Neither player arrived in Paris looking invincible. Neither arrived carrying the aura of favorites. But sometimes the most dangerous athletes are not the ones arriving with comfort. They are the ones arriving with something to prove. When the doubles entry list revealed Eala and Mboko together, most people saw a fascinating experiment. What they failed to see was the foundation already underneath it. Long before Paris, the two young stars already knew each other well. Back in 2022, they had faced one another in the U.S. Open girls semifinals, part of the tournament run that ultimately ended with Eala lifting the junior Grand Slam title. Over time, that rivalry evolved into something else. Respect, friendship, trust. And as it turned out, trust matters enormously in doubles tennis. Far more than rankings. Far more than predictions. The match that changed everything from the opening game in Paris, something immediately felt different. The chemistry between them looked natural. Not forced. Not experimental. Natural. Eala controlled the deuce court with calm intelligence, while Mboko dominated the ad side with fearless aggression. They moved together instinctively. One covered the net before the other even reacted. One anticipated patterns the other had already read. The timing looked less like a new partnership and more like players who had spent years competing together. The early break came quickly. But what changed even faster was the body language across the net. Fernandez and Schneider entered the match expecting to control the pace. Instead, they found themselves reacting. Mboko's returns exploded off the racket with astonishing confidence. The same explosive power that had helped propel her from outside the top 300 into the global spotlight suddenly looked even more dangerous under the Paris lights. Eala, meanwhile, looked remarkably composed. There was no panic in her movement, no hesitation, no visible intimidation despite the occasion. And perhaps most surprising of all, she looked completely at home on clay. For years, critics questioned whether Eala possessed the physical tools necessary to survive consistently against elite-level power players. But clay rewards intelligence. It rewards anticipation. It rewards patience. And in Paris, Eala played with the kind of clay court instincts that cannot easily be taught. At moments, it almost felt symbolic. An Olympic silver medalist standing across the net in the same city where she had achieved one of the greatest accomplishments of her career, now struggling to contain two fearless teenagers who refused to acknowledge the hierarchy everyone else believed in. Little by little, the momentum shifted completely. The younger team relaxed. They smiled between points. The pressure began affecting the favorites instead. Suddenly, the experienced duo started forcing shots. Communication tightened. Errors appeared. And the atmosphere inside the stadium began transforming into something electric. The crowd takes over. Witnesses inside the stadium described an atmosphere unlike a routine first-round doubles match. Philippine flags filled entire sections of the stands. Every time Eala stepped up to serve, the noise level surged dramatically. The chants grew louder. Laban Alex. Again, and again, and again. The energy surrounding the court began feeling bigger than the match itself. Across social media, the reaction exploded almost instantly. Hashtags surged into trending lists across the Philippines before the opening set had even concluded. Watch parties in Manila overflowed with fans. Group chats across Dubai, Toronto, Sydney, and Los Angeles erupted with disbelief. For longtime supporters, this was more than an upset. It was validation. The fans who believed Eala's breakthrough wins in Miami were signs of something bigger suddenly felt vindicated. The people who tracked Mboko's rise months before mainstream tennis coverage caught up suddenly looked prophetic. Because what unfolded in Paris did not resemble a lucky performance. It looked sustainable. It looked real. And, perhaps most importantly, it looked repeatable. The final moment when the final point landed, the reaction from Eala and Mboko felt less like surprise and more like confirmation. They met at center court smiling, almost laughing, as though the rest of the world had finally arrived at a conclusion they already understood. Across the net, Schneider quietly packed her bags while the Philippine flags continued waving proudly from the upper rows. And somewhere inside the tennis establishment, panic quietly began setting in. Because the sport loves discovering stars. But it struggles when those stars arrive faster than expected. The Nadal factor there is another detail that made the victory feel even more significant. Few voices in tennis carry greater authority on clay than Rafael Nadal. 14 Roland Garros titles. 22 Grand Slam championships. The undisputed king of clay. Behind the scenes, Nadal had reportedly spent time offering guidance to Eala during the clay season. During the Italian Open, Eala openly acknowledged how meaningful those interactions had been. "Anything I can take from Rafa," she said, "I'll take with pride." To casual fans, it sounded like admiration. To experienced tennis observers, it sounded far more important than that. Because Nadal does not casually invest time in players he does not believe possess something special. He had watched her movement on clay, corrected details privately, worked with her instincts, and now those lessons were beginning to show publicly. Eala's composure in Paris suddenly looked less accidental, less surprising, more inevitable. The bigger picture, what happened in Paris, felt larger than one doubles match. It felt like the beginning of something much bigger inside women's tennis. Mboko, still only 19 years old, was already forcing her way into top 10 conversations with astonishing speed. Eala continued climbing through the rankings with maturity and tactical intelligence that many players spend entire careers trying to develop. Together, they represented something the WTA has desperately hoped to unlock for years: massive new audiences. The Philippine fanbase alone represents one of the most passionate sports communities in the world. More than 100 million people. A global diaspora spread across continents. Fans willing to stay awake at impossible hours just to stream matches. Now combine that with growing Canadian support behind Mboko, and suddenly women's tennis is looking at an entirely new commercial and emotional force. Tournament organizers notice those things. Broadcasters notice those things. Sponsors definitely notice those things. And perhaps for the first time, the sport realized that Eala and Mboko were not simply promising young players. They were becoming movement-level athletes. They were never supposed to get this far this fast. That is what makes this story resonate so deeply. Because both players were supposed to need more time. That is what the experts kept saying. More development. More experience. more seasoning. Instead, they accelerated the timeline themselves. And they did it without asking permission. Even after their doubles breakthrough, both players continued speaking with remarkable honesty about the setbacks they carried into Paris. Eala never hid her disappointment regarding her singles exit. Mboko openly admitted how painful the Strasbourg final loss felt. But neither player sounded broken. They sounded motivated. Before the tournament, Mboko had been asked about her long-term goals. Her answer was simple. I want to win a Grand Slam. Not someday, not maybe, not hypothetically, just certainty. It's only a matter of time. After Paris, that confidence no longer sounded unrealistic. It sounded dangerous. The future arrives as the clay season moves toward grass courts and Wimbledon approaches. The conversation surrounding Eala and Mboko has already transformed completely. The debate is no longer whether they belong. The debate is how far they can go. Quarterfinals? Semifinals? Titles? Nobody knows anymore. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes sports magical. Because every once in a while, two young athletes arrive and force the entire establishment to rewrite its expectations in real time. That is what happened in Paris. Two players the experts underestimated stepped onto one of the most iconic stages in sports and refused to behave like underdogs. And now the tennis world is scrambling to catch up. The bookmakers can still calculate probabilities. The commentators can still debate tactics. The analysts can still discuss rankings. But none of them can measure momentum. None of them can measure belief. And none of them can fully explain what happens when millions of people suddenly decide they see themselves inside a player's story. That is what Eala and Mboko created in Paris. Not just an upset. Not just headlines. A feeling. And feelings are the most powerful force in sports. Because once people start believing, truly believing, everything changes. The next chapter is already unfolding. One court at a time. One match at a time. And now the entire world is watching.